back. Mr. Latta, 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for holding today's hearing. This is very, very important. As co-chair of the Rural Broadband Caucus and co-chair of the Rural Telecommunications Working Group, access to high-speed broadband in rural areas is a top priority of mine. I believe Congress should facilitate the development of robust broadband networks by creating a regulatory environment that promotes competition and encourages innovation. That's why I introduced a resolution that expresses the sense of the House that broadband deployment should be competitively and technologically neutral. I've also introduced the Precision Agriculture Connectivity Act with Congressman Loebsack to help close the digital divide faced by the agricultural communities in rural America. And Ms. Bloomfield, if I could pose my first question to you. Agricultural operations generate significant value to the national economy and are an essential source of revenue and jobs in our rural communities. Today, modern high-precision farming requires access to high-speed broadband to support advanced operations and technologies that significantly increase crop yields, reduce costs, and improve the environment. My bill, the Precision Agriculture Connectivity Act, requires the FCC to recommend steps to obtain reliable measurements of broadband coverage in order to gain a better understanding of the true lack of access in America. It's my understanding that finding adequate, accurate broadband mapping and coverage management is nearly impossible. And so, Ms. Bloomfield, in what ways would it be beneficial for the FCC to obtain such data for the purpose of deploying high-speed broadband on agricultural croplands and other rural areas?
So, Congressman Latta, I appreciate the question and greatly appreciate the leadership that you've shown on a lot of these issues. Smart ag is truly the next frontier when we think about economic development and vitality for rural America. And I think a lot of the initiatives that you're looking at is how do you gather more of that granular data so that we can really look at the census tract level and figure out, where is the infrastructure and where is the void? Because we certainly know that you need to be able to see it, whether it's street level or whether it's literally on the cropland, in terms of where that infrastructure resides. So I think that when we look at the FCC and some of the work that they've been doing in gathering 477 data and trying to take that data and figure out in a granular, transparent, and accurate way and measuring apples to apples. And the thing I always worry about is when you get different entities trying to measure, they're measuring different ways of measuring where that deployment is. So I think your focus on how do we coordinate, how do we actually aggregate this will go a long way in terms of seeing where we really need to focus some of our future energy and resources.
Well, let me ask you, just to follow up, and you're talking about apples to apples and not apples to oranges here. What would you be what should they be looking at then to make sure that they are looking at the right data and everyone's on the same page here and they're not looking at two different things and coming with two different answers?
So I think we saw a little bit that during the stimulus where there was actually a national broadband map that was built, but it was very inconsistent and it wasn't checked. So people were kind of putting in their own data. There was really no resource to basically say, is this the real data? Is there really coverage there? And as somebody who represents small carriers, I understand that there's always that competitive concern about what data you're releasing. But I also worry that if you've got an entity like NTIA looking at data and you've got the FCC and they're using two different measurements, two different land tracts, different speeds, I think the ability to actually kind of house it in one place where you've got the ability to be consistent, you've got the ability to be transparent. I think folks need to actually see as it gets developed, and you need to be able to have the ability to check it. I think those are things that are going to be very important checkposts as we go forward on that. But it's going to be the foundation for where we go in terms of future investment.
Thank you. Mr. Polka, there is legislation as part of our hearing today, which I support, that incentivizes 5G wireless deployment. I've also introduced a resolution setting the policy of competitive tech neutrality so the government isn't picking winners and losers out there. Is the cable industry doing anything comparable to the 5G rollout with similar speeds and coverage?
Comparable and surpassing when you look at the amount of broadband service that's being delivered by our members in rural America. I had the chance yesterday to hear from a number of members all over the country telling us what they're doing. I heard from one small company in eastern Kentucky, Big Sandy Broadband. They're delivering gigabit speed in eastern Kentucky. I heard from a company called Hickory Telephone, which is building fiber to the home in underserved areas, one of our members in western Pennsylvania. We have members all over the country that are providing gigabit service, 100 megabit, 200 megabit, 300 megabit service. So we are building that service as our customers and our community want us to do. And what we ask, and which is why we appreciate your resolution, that as we go forward as a country and we look at regulations that apply to helping broadband be deployed more effectively, that we do so on a competitive, technology-neutral basis. I can tell you we have a lot of area out there that I have visited personally with our members. It is amazing how much rural area there is out there. Not one company is going to solve these problems, which is why our policy needs to encourage competitive technology-neutral proponents. So yes, we're providing the service, we're building the backbone that actually can help to deliver 5G service down the road as it comes farther out into our areas. So we're up to the challenge.
Well, thank you very much. Madam Chair, my time's expired and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr.